All right, so the tutorial is called Semantic Knowledge Modeling for Domain Experts and Business Users. My name is Ademar. I'm a technical consultant with Metaphacts. Metaphacts was founded in 2014. The headquarters are in Germany. We're a independent software vendor. We have a team across many countries, and the main product and what we will be using today for the hands-on part is called Metafactory. All right, so anyone who wants an instance to work with the hands-on part can get one here in the front with Irina. So there's some instances up. There are usernames and passwords available. The instances will be up during the week. So if there's something that you want to try it out yourself after the session, that's also available. And if you come and talk to us and try something, also come and chat to us. So I'm going to start with an introduction and a use case, a very simple one. I'm going to use this use case to introduce Metafactory. And I'm going to talk about, again, a very simple solution, of course, using knowledge graphs, where we go into the tool and we see the ontology editor, the vocabulary editor, data catalog, a bit of instance authoring, and a bit of visual instance authoring as well as a demo in the end, which is not covered in the main part of the tutorial, but I also want to show you what it looks like and how you can use visual instance authoring. After we see this, and we always go back to the same use case as we go into the tool, there is a new use case, a simple extension of the use case that I'll be presenting. And then we do that from scratch in the tool where we create an ontology and all of these artifacts and see how everything ties up together. So the story that I want to talk to you about, the use case that I want to talk to you about is that over time, a company has worked on many projects, each of them with its specific needs. And at some point, they realized that all of this knowledge was stored in different places. People didn't know exactly what they were talking about. They didn't have the same terminology. People didn't have the same understanding over these projects that they worked on for so many years. And then the issues came, right? So finding where the data is, creating some kind of common understanding, how to express this, how to make sure that this knowledge is shared within the organization and that the people can reuse all of these artifacts later on as well. And of course, the solution for this is a knowledge graph, as we will be using today during the hands-on and at the knowledge graph conference as well. So what we do here, this is a very simple and diagram of what a lot of our projects look like. When we go with the customer, we try to understand their needs. We see a bit of what their data looks like. We try to model it using both knowledge engineers, but also domain experts. We get everyone together to try and create this common understanding. Once we have this, then we go and we build a user interface. So in the end, we have a UI. And this ties into Metafactory and the types of users that are currently using the platform. We have customers that are more on the knowledge modeling side, and they use the tool to create ontologies and vocabularies more. And we have customers that are more focused on the UI side, where the user experience is more important, and they build search interfaces and this common way of dealing with the data. For this, then we use Metafactory. Here we have some of our types of users that we have. If you already have data, you can load it into some database and use the out-of-the-box features for exploration, for navigating through your data, for finding your entities. But we also have users that are a bit more specific, and we're going to go through all of them, and we're going to see all of these steps today. Building an ontology, for example, together with the domain experts and with the knowledge engineers. So this is one step that we do. Then we create a user interface, which is the second step. At this level, we have application developers that work with the end users and the knowledge modelers to create a user interface. And that part ties into the low-code platform. So Metafactory has covers all of the aspects that I just mentioned. So understanding the data, creating the model using the ontology editor, as well as having application developers that can build a user interface using the low-code platform. We're going to see a bit of the templating mechanism and these components as well today in the hands-on section. So what we do is we start with the data in the context with our users. We use this information to create an ontology to give meaning to these concepts, to all of this data. And with that, we create user interfaces that help our users make decisions. So this is the story that we're trying to tell here. This is the main use case. And we're going to go back to what I just mentioned with projects and what's covered within a project as something that it's built in all of the instances that we've given out. From that, we will also see a bit of data authoring, creating some instance data, and then a bit of the user interface. All right, so this is the introduction. And with that, I'm going to go to Metafactory. So I'll share my screen now. And if you do not have an instance and you want to participate in the tutorial, you can get one still, I think.
Yeah, I still have 8.
You still have 8 instances, so if you want to try it out yourself, they'll be, again, as I mentioned, they'll be available throughout the week. And yeah, so let's dive into it. So as you can see here, we have a tutorial for semantic knowledge modeling. This is the start page for the instances that we set up for KGC. You will see here that there's some information about a use case, which is similar to what we'll be doing together. There is all of these steps on most of the things that we will see here. They match and they're the same. Some things are slightly different from the videos and the tutorials and exercises that you see. For each of them, we have some time, some information, and you can come into each of them, and there's a video on how it was done using the tool, as well as a second part, which are the exercises. We're going to do both together, and this is the focus of the session today. If you get a Metafactory out of the box, this is not the start page that you get. This is part of the low-code application building part of the platform. So we have developed a tutorial app. This tutorial app contains these links to the videos, links to other artifacts in the platform. And what you usually get is, as a start page, is this page. So if you just get a Metafactory out of the box and you just start it up, this is the start page. Every Metafactory comes then with its own documentation, with its own tutorials, and you can also try them out here. These are the ones that come with the platform, and this is something that we build for general tutorials and training and so on, as I mentioned. All right, so I'm going to use this to just explain a bit of the tool. Here on the top right, we have some basic search interface. We have a Sparkle editor, and we have assets. Here we're going to see the main assets in the platform, being name graphs, vocabularies, ontologies. We're going to work with all of them soon. You can load some data if you have it as well, some RDF data. We have an admin page, and then we have the help system. And with that, I'm going to go into the tutorial. So hopefully, whoever wants to do it with me can now go into the tool as well. So I just want to go back a bit to the use case that we had. So the use case was that we had projects within a company, and they needed somehow to model these projects and some artifacts on how people interact with projects and so on. So we can go to the ontologies page here. So here on the top right, if you go to assets, you can go to the ontologies. All of the instances have the full ontology. This is a modified version for the purpose of this tutorial. Here, you would see a list of all the ontologies. We're going to create one very soon. you see options for downloading an ontology, deleting it. You can have you can validate an ontology. There's an RDF editor for people who want to work with Turtle as well. There's Git integration if you have it. All of the instances do have a local repository as Git, so it's not sending it to any remote repository. Just so you're aware for demo purposes. If we go into the ontology here to Thoth, you will see this first dialog. So it's asking whether you want to start your modeling from a class tree. So this will load all the classes in the ontology onto the canvas. And on the left one, it starts with an empty canvas. So usually I go with the empty canvas. Zoom in. Right. Okay, so from the chat, I just zoomed in a bit. So I'm going to start with an empty diagram. You can start with the class diagram, but there are many classes there. It's not our focus for the tutorial today. So I'll start with an empty diagram. Here on the left panel, we see all of the items that are of interest for ontology modeling. So these are the list of classes, attributes, and relations. There's also an info and metadata option. Here, there's just some title and some description coming from Thoth. And if you have Git integration, you should be able to see how to store it to Git, some history, and some other information of everything that you save to Git. If we come back here on the left panel, we also see that there's now a dialog for diagrams. You can work with many diagrams, duplicate them, export them, and so on. Each ontology in Metafactory will have a default diagram, which is the one that opens by default once you logged in, as soon as you create one. If you don't have one, then you always see this first dialog asking whether you want to start from an empty canvas or from the class tree. The main class that we are working with is project, so I can search for it, or I can use the class tree if I know what it is. Now, from here on, I can drag and drop my class onto the canvas. Once this class is here, I can see information about this class on the top right. Sorry, on the left panel. This is called a knowledge panel in Metafactory. It's something that it's baked into the system, and you can plug it into multiple places. We're going to see something similar to this a couple of times today during the tutorial, during the hands-on part. You can see attributes, and you can see any relations here as well. So these are some things that are pre-baked into the system based on the use case that I just mentioned. So we have the project class. Now that I have an entity here in the middle, I can also save a diagram. And if I save it, now every time that I come back to my class, to my ontology, to this specific ontology, I will see the same diagram. You can also create new ones, so meaning you can have multiple diagrams per ontology. This is something that it's very used because different people use the same ontology. Different people change the same ontology, the same class multiple times, but they have different focuses. Sometimes they're working just with the project. Sometimes they're working with a person and everything related to a person. So this is one way of modularizing your ontology development based on diagrams, but you're still working with the same ontology. Of course, you can have multiple ontologies and separate things that way, and we're going to do that later on as well. But you can also do it within the same ontology. Now, if we click on the plus button, we can see all classes that are directly linked to the project class. If I click on expand, all of them are dragged onto the canvas. So I can see that I have themes, I have organizations, I have skills, and I have persons. I will just make sure that we can see all of them here. Here on the bottom part, we also have some options to see more information about our ontology. So we can undo any actions, we can zoom in and out, we can fit to the screen, clear all, and there are some layouting algorithms as well. So if you have too many classes, you can try and select one of them and see what looks best. Here on the show edges, you can also see certain types of edges. So you can clean up some of the attributes that you have on the canvas and focus on only the ones that you're interested in. Here I left only subclass relations, subclass and relations, which are SHACL, by the way. I will mention a bit on what's happening under the hood in a bit as well. For the moment, just know that everything that we do here is RDF, and it's saved on a database, a standard RDF database, right? And we use a mix of OWL and SHACL. I'll explain a bit more in a bit as well. I will save the diagram again, so to make sure that every time that I come back here, I still have the same model loaded. So I have projects. Projects have themes. Projects involves organizations, and projects require skills. And we have members in this project, and people also have skills. So this is the main knowledge that we're modeling here. This is the main focus for our first use case on what we're doing here. Is that all good? Do you have questions? All right, here on the bottom.
What is the relation -L?
Yeah, so here we do allow for visualizing our relations, meaning data type properties, the domain and range, but we do not allow them to be edited. The editor currently only works with OWL and SHACL. I have a couple of slides on that later, a bit later on. But if you do them, you can still see the disjoint width and relation OWL, but the differentiation is that OWL are domain and range, and normal relations are actually property shapes from SHACL. What you can also notice here is that we have some classes that have a vocabulary restriction associated with it. And if I click on it, I can see here on the right that instances of this class must be member of the vocabulary data team. This happens twice for this and this one. And what this means is that for this ontology, we have SHACL restrictions that would check whether those values belong to that specific vocabulary. And we're going to use this a bit more later on as well. And I will explain as well why that is. What I also want to show you now is, so up until now, we're only exploring the ontology, and we're only creating a diagram, so a view of the ontology, right? I can create multiple ones, as I mentioned, I can change them and so on. If we want to edit them, we have this switch to edit mode button. And if we go here, now we have a couple more options, so we can change labels, change descriptions, add the vocabulary restriction that I just mentioned, if that makes sense. We can create attributes or change existing attributes. And if we look on the canvas, we also see two more arrows. So we have one below it, which creates a new relation, and we have one on the top, which creates a subclass relation. This is the main difference here between these two arrows. And this happens with all of them. What I also want to do here now is, as part of the exercise, we can create an attribute for person. So if I click on the class person, my knowledge panel for the class will show me options on how to change them. I can go into attributes, click on add attribute, click on new attribute. I can create a new one and I can give it any name that I want, or I can use an existing one. For the tutorial, I just want to add a label. So this is an RDFS label, and I can add a data type, and I just want to say that it's string. If I want to, I could also say that it has some cardinality restrictions. So I can give it a min count or a max count, and then apply it. As soon as I do this, I have the option now to save the ontology. And if I save this, then it will create that attribute for that class. You also see that the diagram and the saving ontologies, they're separate buttons. So if I change my diagram in any way, I always need to save my diagram to make sure that when I come back here, I see the same view. Are we all good? So these are the main features for the ontology editor. Remember, we have some projects, and we wanted to make sure that we created this common understanding, right? So what I mentioned before about vocabularies, and this is how they fit in now. As people started creating data, creating projects, people noticed that for certain classes, they didn't want people to just create a new theme or a new skill and so on. So for that, it was decided that there would be a vocabulary behind it, and this is what this means right now. This means that this comes from a vocabulary. At this point, then we can go and check the vocabulary view to see what that means. So all of the instances have this loaded as well, so we can come onto assets, and here there will be an option for vocabularies. We have two vocabularies loaded here. You will see that the UI for creating vocabularies is actually very similar to the ontology one. You can create a new one, download an existing one, or delete it. It's also tied into Git. So if you want to save vocabularies to Git, that's also possible. And you have some basic information about your vocabulary. So how many terms you have, how many top-level terms, and things like that. For this, we will use the skills group vocabulary. This was developed by, it's available at the europa.eu portal, and we just loaded in to Metafactory. So if I come here and I open my vocabulary, again, you will see a similar UI to the one for ontologies. On the left side, we see all of the terms and the everything that it related to a vocabulary that we can use, and we can edit it. And on the right, you will see some basic information about the ontology. So these are all the languages available for this vocabulary. If we go onto info and metadata, we see the metadata for it. And if we go into Git versioning, it will show you these options to save it to Git. And if you have history, etc., you'll also be able to see it there. Here, to explore, you can do a search on and to find a specific term, or you can click on one of them, and then you see on the middle part, you will see all the labels and all the information for that vocabulary. If it's part of a hierarchy or a collection, you also see that on the right panel. I can explore then the hierarchy. As I do it here, we can click on it. If I want to edit a term, I can go into edit mode, and then I see the form to create new vocabularies. And if I need to create new top-level terms, I can use this button here. And if I need to change hierarchies, for example, or add any additional information, we can click on the three buttons here, and we can create a new term at this level, or we can edit the hierarchy for that term. Right, so at this point then, of course, the ontology was already ready, right? But the flow that we usually have here is that people started creating a model, they started creating the ontology. At some point, they saw the need for a vocabulary. All the terms must be described in a separate place. Everyone should follow that terminology. And someone else went in, created it, or decided to reuse something that it's already available online. Right now, at that point, then we would have gone back to the vocabulary to create that link. When we get to the second step of the hands-on, then we will do this part all separately, and we will see what this means when we need to link it back to the ontology. All right. Are there any questions?
Can you say a bit more about a hierarchy of terms as opposed to hierarchy in the ontology?
Right, so in the ontology, there will be subclass relations. And here, so in Metafactory, ontologies are this mix of OWL and SHACL. There's some slides that I will use to explain a bit more of that later. And vocabularies are SCOS vocabularies. So what you see here as a vocabulary, it's a concept scheme from SCOS. Each of these terms is a SCOS concept. And every time that you create a top-level term, then it has the SCOS has top-level term property in it. And if you have hierarchies, then you would have narrower or broader relations from the SCOS recommendation as well. Okay, any other questions? All right. So I will show you just a quick demo on datasets as well, which is another knowledge graph asset that we have available. So in knowledge graph, in datasets, we have dcat datasets. So you can use this to describe certain parts of your data. Again, this is a similar UI to the other ones. You have the option to create, you have some filters, you have some basic information about these dcat datasets. These two, they describe the vocabularies that we just saw. So the data team vocabulary and the ESEO vocabulary. So both of them are available online that we just loaded into the system. If we click on it, then we can see that the dataset has some information, options to edit it, and it's also linked to a name graph. And the way that this is used in Metafactory is that if I do some searches or if I explore that data within the system, this is used to show a bit of metadata about where the data comes from. So I will just go into the quick search now to give you an example. So I know that thinking is one of the concepts in the ESEO vocabulary. And when we do that, if that link exists, we show it here. And if you click on it, you see some information about the data set. And this is how currently we use it to link dcat catalogs and data sets to any kind of RDF data sets that you may load into the system as well. Right, so what we started with was this idea that we needed to describe projects, we needed to describe teams, and we created the ontology, we created the terminology, we linked everything back together into our model, and then what we have preloaded into the system now is just a bit of instance data. And to show you that, I will go back into the ontology. I will open our ontology. You can see that the diagram came back as I saved it. If I click on the class now, here on the panel, on the knowledge panel, you will see an option to navigate to resource. So in Metafactory, every time that you have some entity described, you may have templates associated with it, and these are out-of-the-box templates. So if I go into navigate to resource, I have a page that describes the class that I created using the ontology editor. So I have it here, the IRI of the class, I have the ontology that defined it, and I also have a table describing all of the properties and expected types for our class. So here I can see the project has a description, which is a string. You can see the cardinality here as well that you define in the ontology. And if you have a description, you will also see the description here on that. What you also see is a quick overview on instance usage. And in each of the instances created for the tutorial, we have two instances of project. And there's an option to create new ones. And as I click on new instance, I see a form. This form is a model-driven form created based on the ontology that we just saw. So the project class in the ontology has a description, it has a label, it has an end date and a start date, it has an involves, relation, members, and so on. And each of these fields is model-driven then based on that class. Descriptions and labels are string values, so you can just enter any kind of free text that you want. For end date and start date, they have the type XSD date, so the form also sees that, and it will show you a calendar that you can select the dates from. The form will also see that the involves has a link to an organization. So we will preload the organizations available in the dataset. Here we have Metaphacts and Trinity College Dublin, which is where I did my PhD. You also have members, so anyone that is of type person will be loaded here. And we have the two vocabularies that we link to. So he has a requires skill relation, and here we can see the tree hierarchy for that vocabulary. And we can come here and select whatever concepts that we need from that vocabulary. And this also has a searching as well, and it will show you the hierarchy as well here. The same thing for team. I didn't go into the team vocabulary, but it's a similar idea. It's also a list of terms. It was also loaded from a portal available on the web. And here we can say that a project has a team, and then I can select it from the vocabulary. Right. There's also an option to edit it. Edit it is also based on the ontology. So these values, this form is now for editing the project, an ontology for data privacy. It also has the date, etc. Everything here then it's for editing. And then you just have these options to save and delete. But it's all model-driven, all based on the ontology as well. And we can also explore this instance data. So if I click on it here, I have, again, the knowledge panel. The knowledge panel is very similar to the one that we saw for ontologies. The one for the ontologies are for our classes. So everything that we create as a class in our ontology will have that specific knowledge panel because it has the same type. Anything here would have, anything that is a project will also have a very similar knowledge panel. We can open also the other one, a knowledge graph exploration portal. We also see this here, and we also have the option to navigate to resource. Here, when we got to this project, I navigated to the resource of an L class from the ontology. When I do this here, I'm going to this instance of a project. And what I get here is a UI that was built for showing data about this project. And I can see the label, the description, all of the data that we were able to edit it. We can create a user interface for that project. So we can see the organizations that are linked to this project. We can see members. We can see many components on how to display data coming from the knowledge graph. We also have the required skills, and it shows you the whole tree from the vocabulary. So all the scales, narrow, and so on will be used to show the tree component. Here on the right, we have a diagram of the project. So anything related directly to the project is also shown here as a diagram. And these are all based on the data, on what's loaded into the system. They would also have a knowledge panel themselves. And we can link them anywhere that we want to. You can see that it's slightly different, the one for project from the one that it's a concept. So they are all customizable based on their type, much like the template for a project. Here on the bottom, we have a timeline component as well, which is also available with the platform. And we have a table with suggested members. And this is a query on other members that we have loaded into the data that have the same skills that this project requires. So this is just something that to show a bit on how we can create this UI, how we can create the user experience based on some requirements and so on. So if we tie back then to the three main steps, right? So we analyze the data, we analyze our requirements, we create vocabularies and ontologies as we need to. And once we have this and we have some data in it, then we can create the user experience. So we can go in and create some templates, and we have this consistent view for everything that it's a project, for everything that is an organization, for example. And I'll just go to the organization to show another example. These are all loaded into the instances that you have. So here I have a label, the projects for this organization. There's a map as well. So if you have coordinates, you can show it as a map. And here we also have another diagram then for everything related to an organization. All right. Any questions? Okay, so this is the first part of the hands-on, which is things that we have pre-built to explain how the tool works and what we can do with it. I will show you just one more thing before we go into the second part, where we extend a bit the use case, and then we create a new ontology and a new vocabulary and a new UI as well, and a bit of more of the model-driven components that we have with Metafactory. So here, one thing that I just want to mention, because we're going to go back to this, is, as I mentioned before, the organization, we have the Metaphacts organization, and we created this view for anything that it's an organization in the system. So if I create a new one and I have new projects, new labels, I will get to something similar to this. The way that the platform works is by using a template mechanism. And you may have noticed that you see this edit page here. So if you have the right permissions on any of these pages, you'll be able to click on edit page. And you will see an editor. Here, this is the organization Metaphacts, but it actually has a list of applicable templates. So every time that we create a generic view or something that would have a consistent view throughout our data set, we use templates. So let me go back here. So what I do here is instead of creating a specific page, I use the applicable templates option. This already has a background color as in yellow. This means that this template was applied to the instance of this project that I just saw. So if I click on it, then right now I'm seeing the actual page that was loaded. And here you will see that it's a mix of HTML with some sparkle on how to build the interface. And this is one of the core things with Metafactory, the low-code platform, which is this last bit when we build the UI. You can create any kind of pages, search interfaces, and then also build templates that are based on your model, right? So based on a certain type or for either a full page or for a knowledge panel. So they work in very similar ways, and you create it once, and then you can reuse it for anything that it's a project or anything that it's an organization. Sorry? Okay. Right, so from now on, we're going to go back and we're going to basically review everything that we've seen so far, but we're going to create a new model. So at this point, we have the ontology and everything ready. We have some data and we have all of these UIs. What we do now is we got new requirements and we need to extend our example a bit. So what we do now is we go back to the same step. So we would create an ontology, we will see if we need a new vocabulary, and then we will create some instance data, and maybe in the end we also create a new page with some UI as well. All right, so we go back to the ontologies page, we go to assets and we go to ontologies. We will see the same thing. Now instead of going into the fourth one, we create a new one. Here, I go into the create option, and it will you ask for a title. The ontology that we'll be creating, then it's company. So it's extending our use case. We have projects and organizations. Now we need to describe a bit more of the domain, meaning we have departments and we have employees and we have occupations as well. We're going to tidy it up a bit with the previous example that we had. So I can give it a name. It will suggest you an IRI for the ontology and the namespace, but you can change it as you wish. I'm just going to leave it like this. When we create a new ontology, we get onto the same editor as before. Because this is the first time that we went in, we're already on edit mode. The ontology here, the ontology editor itself, then it's the same. We have metadata, versioning, classes, attributes, and relations on the left, and we have the panel on the right to do any extra editing. In the middle, then we will use the canvas to create the classes again and the relations again. I will just go into the metadata option first, and maybe we just add a quick description, right? So there's some other options here on metadata information that you may want to add for your own ontology. So maybe here I just say this ontology describes departments and employees. And I can save it. Right. So now I have some additional description. You can add anything that you want here. Right, so now from here, what we want to do is we want to create a new class. In the previous one, we didn't create a new class. We just saw whatever was there, and we explored the ontology as it is. We can go and create new class. You will see this option here on the middle. It will ask you at least for a label. This is the department class. As I mentioned, we're extending it a bit with department and employees. I can apply it. Once I apply it, I see the panel here on the right. I can add a description if I want to, vocabulary restrictions, or attributes. I will go onto attributes and just add a label because it makes things slightly easier later on for us to just have at least one attribute for the department. And I'll say that it is of type string. So when I'm adding some data later on and I may want to create a new department, I can see that field on the model-driven form. Yeah. So here on the bottom left, there's a create new class button. Yep. All right. So we want to describe department a bit more, and we want to say that a department has employees. So I can create a new class. Here on the bottom left, there's the create new class button. I can come here and say, this is my employee class. And what I want to do now is I want to say that a department has employees, right? Or that you can choose, or some other relation that you want to. I'll go with the easy one and say has employee as the name of it. Sorry, I'll go back a bit. I think I went a bit too further ahead. So remember, we have the top ones to create subclass relations. So this is not what we're doing right now. And we have the bottom one, which create relations between classes. So if I use the bottom one, I can drag it to whatever class I want to create that relation to. So this is for employee. Once I do that, I have two options. Either I can select existing ones from all the ontologies available in the system, or I can click on create new. If I go on create new, then you will create a new property on this namespace, on this ontology. The name of my property will be has employee, so I can apply it. If I click on it, I also have then on the panel on the right some additional information. I can add cardinalities if I want to, or I can add a vocabulary restriction as well. I'll go in and save this at this point. And what we want to do now is we want to, as I mentioned before, we were extending a bit the previous use case. So what we want to do now is we want to link it back to the ontology that we had loaded before, which is the FOF ontology. And ideally, we reuse as much as possible, as people would agree with, I guess. So we can come here on the left, and you would have the list of ontologies available. You can go to all of them, or you can go to the FOF one, which is specifically the one that we just used as an example. Here you would have the list of classes, and much like any other class, you can drag and drop into the canvas, and you can create relations to that class. What we want to do now here is I'll use the quick search to find the organization class, and I will drag and drop it onto the canvas. Here we see a lock here onto the canvas. This means that this class is not defined in this namespace. It was defined in some other ontology, but I can still use it. So I can link things and I can extend it in any way that I want to. But this means that this ontology was described in another, this class was described in another ontology. That's also visual by the color. So this has a different color than these two classes. So the class, this bar here on the right means that it's in a different one. Now, from here, I want to say that a department belongs to an organization. So I come here and I select the bottom arrow again. I drag and drop onto the organization class. And I'm yet again going to create a new property here. And now what I want to say is I want to say that a department belongs to an organization. So I come here and I say belongs to. And I have this now on the canvas. And I also want to extend my employee and to reuse the person class from FOF as well. So I can come here, I can drag and drop FOF. But what I want to say here is I want to say that my employee is a subclass of person. So I don't want to create a relation. I want to say that that it subsumes the class person from the full ontology. To do that, I drag from the top arrow, and I can drag into the full person class.
Does it automatically inherit then everything?
Yes. So meaning that a person has a label, and an employee would also have a label. Yeah. I can save this now. Once I save it, it actually shows you here that the label is inherited, and it has an icon as well so that you can see it visually. Right. We will extend this just a bit more with our use case. So we're going to create another class, and we're going to call it occupation. And we're going to say that employees have an occupation. So we're going back again here onto the employee class, and using the bottom arrow, the bottom arrow, I can drag it onto the occupation class that I just created. Once I leave there, I can create my my relation. So I'm just going to call it occupation. And now I can save the ontology. So this is, as of now, all the new requirements that we had. So we wanted to describe a bit more of the domain. We had department, employee, and occupation. So people started looking into this, and they said, right, we don't want people to just come in and add any occupations as they wish. What we want them to do is we want to use a vocabulary for this, much like we had it for teams and skills. Now we want to use a vocabulary and a vocabulary restriction for the occupation class. Here, we could add it here, but that vocabulary doesn't exist, so it will not show you here as well yet. What we will do now is we will go onto the vocabularies page, and we will create the vocabulary first, and then we come back here to do the linking. Right. So if we go here on the assets, we go to vocabularies. Here now we will create a new one. So we're going to call it the occupation vocabulary. So I go here on the top right to create, and I'm going to call this the occupation vocabulary. And you can change any of these values if you wish. Once we do create, we end up on the page that we were before, right? Very similar to the other ones. We have some information about the vocabulary here, the metadata, Git versioning, and we can create our terms here. So we can create one by going on to create top-level term, and we can have these options here, right? And give it a preferred label, synonym, and so on. Or we can do it slightly faster if we go onto the arrow here on the top and go on beside the create top-level term, and we go to import terms. So if I come here on import terms, I can give it a list, and let's say that I have the manager concept, and I have the engineer concept as well. So if I save this here, I have both of them created. It can be a list as long as you want. So I have my two occupations here first created. What we also want to do is we want to create some narrower terms as well. So if we go on to engineer, here with the 3 dots at the end, you will see a couple more options. So you can edit the hierarchy, we can create new terms in this branch, or you can do an import again. If you do an import here, then all the terms that you define here will be narrower to the engineer one that you just selected. Here we will create, again, another 2 concepts, so a data engineer and a software engineer. Right, so I have 2 terms, and I can save it. Once I do it, I have those 2 ones now here on our list of concepts. We have the data engineer and we have the software engineer. Now I want to describe it a bit and just show you a bit more on what we can do here. So let's say that we have some synonyms for the software engineer concept. So I can come here on edit term. I have the synonyms here. Synonyms are alt labels, if people are familiar with SCOS. And I can say here that an application engineer is also is a synonym to the software engineer concept, and software developer. And I can do that for any of them and add additional information and descriptions and so on. Now we can come here and save it, and we have then these synonyms here. Is this all good up until now? All right. So now that we have then this list of terms and people can reuse it, we need to still go back and link it to the ontology. So to do that, we go back to our ontology. And here's the company ontology. I didn't save my diagram before, so we will ask you again if you want to start from the tree or from an empty. I'll just start from everything. There are not that many classes. So we will just load all the classes onto the canvas here. Right. So I'll just save the diagram now so it comes back afterwards if I come back here. And now what we need to do is we need to create a vocabulary restriction. So right now we're saying that an employee has an occupation. But if I go to edit mode, I click on occupation, then I have the option to add a vocabulary restriction. It can be by collection term or vocabulary. We're restricting it to the vocabulary. And here we will select then the occupation vocabulary and apply. Now we will give you a quick hint there that it's vocabulary restricted, and then we can save it.
How do you get the option to add the vocabulary restriction?
So if you click on the class,
Yeah.
and you need to go into edit mode as well. Yeah. And then you have to select vocabulary. We didn't create any collections, but you could if you wanted to. But we're using the restriction by vocabulary. All right. So we created our model. What we can do now is to create some instance data. So I can create some departments or some employees and so on. We could create a new page and create a new form for it. It would be a model-driven form. It would read the ontology, read the classes, and then create a form for us. Or we can do it as we did before. We can go to the resource here. So if I click on employee, I can see the go to resource link here. Or if I'm not on edit mode, I can see the navigate to resource here as well. So if I leave here, I end up on this page again. Remember, we saw that previously for the project, but we have a similar one for employee, but it's querying, of course, data based on this class. So now I'm not seeing the project, I'm seeing the employee class, and I see all the properties associated with it. And I can also go onto the second tab on instance usage and see that there are no instances of employee, but I can create some new ones now. So I'll go and create a new one. You see here that it picks up, even though we didn't define it ourselves, these attributes. We defined employee to be a subclass of person, but person has a label, person has skills, and person, oh, sorry, the occupation is for the employee. The skill wasn't the person.
Label on person.
You would have had to define it in the person in the FOF, or you can just create it there as well. So if you don't see it, it's most likely the FOF person doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something you added?
I added it. Yeah. Right. So I can. I'll just create it myself here, and I'll say that I'm. I wish I'm the manager, but I'm not. Just wishful thinking, maybe. I'll use it as the manager. Yeah. I'll say that I'm a manager, and then I can also add some skills here. I guess thinking is one of them. And I can save it, right? So then I see all the instances here. I can click on it and I see the knowledge panel for it. And we have a very similar UI as the ones that we've seen for project before, but now for our employee. You can create new ones, or you can edit them and edit yourselves and edit the information that you want as well. Is that good? All right. So I'll create one more just so we have a second one. So I'll create Kai. And none of them are compulsory, so I'll just leave as is and save it. What I also want to do now is then I can create instances of department. So I can come here on department, do the same thing, go to the navigate to resource for department, and here I can see the properties related to this class. And if I go on instance usage, I can create a department. So I can say that a department belongs to an organization, and I can say that a department has someone. So I can say me here. I actually noticed that I didn't add a label for department, so I'm just going to do that as well. I'll go into edit modes, attributes, and I'll add a label for departments. And apply and save. So now that I have it, I can go onto my page again, and I can add a label here. So I'll say professional services. I did this because then it makes it a bit easier to see the data in the system. And you always get the label by default as you navigate throughout Metafactory. So in general, I would always add a label to any entity. If I click on it, I can see some information. It belongs to Metaphacts, and it has an employee, me. Okay. Any questions up until now? Yeah.
Everything you're doing in the UI here,
Yeah.
creating triples in the backend.
Yeah. Everything here ends up as RDF triples. Yeah.
And do you have a quick way to visualize the triples that you just?
Yeah. Great question. I forgot to mention that before, but in every temp page that we see here, that it's model driven by a specific entity. So we call it a template that we create, and it's always navigate to resource when you end up in one of those templates. Every time that we have something that is an entity in the graph, so it has an IRI, it's a resource in the graph, we have this knowledge graph bar here on the top, and you have these 3 buttons here. So this is one view, which is if the page view exists, that's the one that you see. So there's a page view here for the type class, for the type out class, which is what we created. There's a triples view or a statements view, which is this button in the middle. So if you go here, you see everything that is linked to department. So department IRI is the subject, and then you have the property, predicate, and you have the object. And it also shows you in which name graph that was stored. Here on the bottom, it also shows you any income statements. So this class is used in an ontology, so it has a type, it has a target class, and so on. And it also shows you where that is in which name graph. This is a blank node. That's why you see it like this.
You have the same thing for the classes.
Yes, you have the same view for, so this is the class, right? This is the class, and it's a type out class. It was defined in the company ontology. But let's say that I go to the professional services, which is another entity in the graph that I just created. So it has a type department, it has a label, it has an employee, Ademar, and it has a belongs to Metaphacts. So all of these are triples in the graph. So this is a quick way of looking into it. This is the subject, predicate object, and then if you have income statements, then you have something pointing to your one. So there's another subject with another predicate pointing to this one, which is this case here, right? So there's a subject and a type then pointing to department. Right? There's also a Sparkle editor. So if you really want to, you can come here.
Adama?
And
Adama? Maybe it's worth pointing out the graph view as well. So as
yeah, that was the next option that I forgot. So there's also a graph view here. So for all of them, everything that is an entity in the graph, a resource in the graph, you have the page view, the statement view, and also the graph view. The graph view will show you as a node here. You would have the knowledge panel, which is the same one that you see on the ontology editor. They're all consistently used throughout the platform as long as they have the same type. It's the same template that it's being applied, either if it's a whole page or if it's a knowledge panel, meaning you have attributes, etc., and you can still navigate it as a graph then, right? So we can come here and get all of the types. So this means the department is defined in the company ontology. You see the type here under it. There's a department, so a subject, professional services, that is of type department. And there is the department class is of type class, which is an OW class. If you click on it, you will see the OW class here. All right. Very good. So we've extended then, going back to our use case, we've extended then the model. So we created a new ontology. We had departments, employees, and occupation. We've decided the occupation will come from a vocabulary. So we defined that vocabulary. We created some terms, some hierarchy. We linked it back into the ontology with a vocabulary restriction. And then we used model-driven forms to create instance data. So we created a couple of instances as well. Now, at this point, we would create some UI for people to consume. There are other ways of consuming data, of course. You can create REST APIs, etc. But we will create a page here for people to come in and look at the data as we have it. To do that, we will create a new page. It's going to be slightly different than what we did before with the templates. We will create a new page. This is not it's similar as everything is a template in Metafactory, but this one is a page that will have a search interface. So to do this, what you can do is we can come to the admin page. There are two ways of creating a new page. So you can come to admin. And this is something that we would say an application engineer building, right? Together with the knowledge modeler, creating this UI and user interface. Here, if we go onto the template and application pages in the middle, you will see a list of all the pages available in Metafactory. And Metafactory is template-based, meaning the ontology editor is itself a template. The class template that we just saw is a template with some HTML and querying as well. And everything that is built in the platform becomes a template that can be reused in multiple places. And this is the list of all the templates available. For example, here, as we looked into it, we had a template for an organization. So this is a template that it's available here, and it's pre-built in an app. So if we have a use case and we create some interfaces and some models and data and so on, we can pack it as an app. Here we call this the tutorial app, which is the one that we use for these types of trainings. It's the one that defined the start page. It's the one that defined those videos and exercises. So this is a pre-built app. You can load it into any Metafactory, and it will pick it up, all of those configurations. And what we want to do now is we want to create an additional page. There's one here that I created before the training, and I'm going to use it later as a demo for visual instance authoring. But what we can do here is we can use this option to create a new page. So you can use the following form to create a new page. All pages in Metafactory have a URI, so have a URI definition. So here, using the base prefix, so the column option, we can type in search, validate it, and then create page. This will create a new empty page. This is one way of creating a new empty page. What you can also do is from any page that you have in the system, you can change the URL, the last part of the URL. So anything after resource /, and you can type in search here, for example. And this will create a new page as well. So if you do that and you type in enter, you will see that it seems like there's no resource. So we didn't find any RDF with this URL. And then you see the edit page option. If you are an admin. If you're not an admin, you don't see anything, you don't have access. And then here you can create this new page. Right, so there are two ways of creating using the UI. Of course, you can create it separately. These pages end up stored in your machine, and then they are baked into apps where we do deployments. So very commonly, we would build it on dev in runtime, pre-packaged as an app and then put it into other environments. And then people will validate it on a QA environment and then put it in a production environment. Right. So maybe this is the bit that it's a bit more complex, that we're not just using the system, we're creating a new page, a new template. Hopefully you got here as well. So we have here then the search page. And here we can create our own HTML, our own page. What we'll do here is we want to create a search interface. So to do this, I'm going to create a div. So this is standard HTML. I'm just going to do some margins. Otherwise, they're going to get like really close to the edges. So it's always good practice to put a bit of margins. And I'm going to just give a title first. So just we have a filling on, H2. And say exploration, or yeah, exploration. And I can hit save. Once I do hit save, I see the page, I see the HTML here, there's the margins. I can go back onto edit. So we always have the option to save or to save in view. Once you do this, this page is stored in the instance, and this becomes then a page that it's available here if you come here and click on search. So that's just the page that we literally just created, right? So if I come here, I see that page, and if I'm an admin, I can come here and create and add any of the other components available in the platform. So this is the part that it's focused more on creating a user interface. It's on an application, a developer that builds these applications and uses components available with Metafactory to build these UIs. Everything that we've seen so far, including the ontology editor, vocabulary editor, all of those components, forms, the trees, the class, all of them are components that are available in the platform and that are used to create those interfaces, either for ontology editing, for creating data, or for all these other options. What we'll do now here then is create a search onto the system. This is based on a search component. Metafactory comes with some types. We will use one of them now. And to do that, we have an option to use the wizard. So here we have a button, Use Configuration Wizard. You can create forms here as well, or search. We're going to use the search, but just so you're aware, the forms that we've seen before, that were reading the data from the ontology and creating those fields, all based on the class definitions, you can create your own forms here, and you also have some options to customize it. What we'll do now is we will create a search, and if we click on here, it will show you this dialog, and you can go on to create new. There are 3 options here to create search exploration pages. We're going to go on to search by keyword and type. And we're also going to enable facets. We don't have that many things right now, but we're just going to enable to see that that's an option, and you can create facets using this type of search as well. In all of them, you have the option to create facets. So search by keyword and type, and then we go on to select classes. Here, it will show you all the classes that you have on the system. We're going to do it for the company that we just created, and we have department, and we also have employee. So I can select these classes. So I can use the checkboxes and then click on Use Selected Classes. And then this will be shown here on the right panel. So this is how we select the classes that we want to use. This is all model-driven. This is all querying the ontology that is loaded in the data. Once I do this, I have the options for facets. And I have the facet then for has employee. And I have 2 label facets, one for department and one for employee. I could select all of them, just as an example. Usually label wouldn't be a facet, but just to show you that we can have either IRIs or strings as facets as well. Use selected, and then they'll come here on the right. And then we click on Generate Configuration. Here we can see all the configuration for this search component. and some visualization results. So this covers the first step when you're starting to build a search interface. There's also an option here on result where you can already see what that looks like. So this looks good, and this is the code to create it. In the documentation, there will be more examples, more ways of customizing it, changing properties, and so on. We can then go into insert configuration. It would just add everything that we just saw there onto the template. And now we can go to save and view. If I go into save and view, then I have my entities that I just created. I can click on department and I see the professional services. I can come here, click on employee. I can see the 2 employees. I also have the option for facets. So I can come here and has employee. I can click here. Of course, I just have one result. But if I wanted, I could even, it doesn't make sense to do this type of filters, but just so you're aware that that's possible. And of course, the search also works. So I can also search for me. I see just my result, and then I can select it and explore it. All right.
One question from the chat. From Rachel Aurora from PNS. Is there best practice for creating the class, like what all the attributes should be there for class?
So the question was whether there are recommendations of creating classes. I just want to repeat it because they needed a microphone in the other session. Yeah, right. So by default, I guess you would need at least some human readable information, right? So you would want, some people use the labels in the URI, some people don't, but you would want at least some basic human readable information. The label is the minimum. Most likely, if you have more people using it, you would want some kind of description as well, so that people know what you're talking about and whether they should reuse it in other models and so on, right? So that will be the basic information for a class. Of course, the more relations that you have, the more connections you have in your ontology and your graph, the better. But if you're just describing one class, I would say you need at least some human readable, understandable information to make it, easier to understand. All right. Any questions up until now? Yeah.
So the instance data that you're connecting to the ontology, right? So does it reside in the RDF store that you connect Metafactory to?
Yeah. Okay. Everything that we've done so far is saved in a repository in an RDF.
But what if we want to connect to an external RDF repository for the instance data?
You can connect to any repository that you want. So we have one set up here, happens to be GraphDB for the instances, but you can set up any RDF, any database that talks Sparkle would work. So the database is not baked into with Metafactory. This is a separate instance that you need to create repositories and so on. You can connect to anything there, or even have additional repositories as well. So you don't have to connect to just one. You can connect to multiple, and then your queries can be federated or not if you want. Yeah.
We've looked at the ontology in GraphView. Can you look at the instance data in GraphView as well?
Yeah. So if you come here on this on me that I created, you would have the same views, right? So if there is a page, you would see the UI that you created, labels, descriptions, any diagrams, tables. You have the statements view in the same way, so you can see the data here. And if you don't have anything set up yet, then you see it in a graph view. So you can see everything here, and you can explore it as much as you want. And you can also save it as diagrams. So if you have a specific use case or something that you need to show it to someone or to get their feedback, you can create a diagram for your data.
I don't know, maybe it's worth pointing out as well that if you have already instance data in your existing Sparkle compliant database, that you could, the most basic use case with Metafactory is to explore it. So that's,
yeah. So this is available for the data that was loaded before, right? So all the instances have some data there already. You can load any file that you want. If it's RDF and if it's in the database, you will see the exact same view. So you will see the IRI. This is the label if it exists, the RDFS label. By default, RDFS label or scospref label, but you can configure any other properties to be your default label property. And you will see the same view. So you see a node, you see the option to open the knowledge panel, and how to explore the connections as you wish.
Another question, maybe could you elaborate a little bit more on linking the instance data? Like,
Right. So this is the last, it's a great question. It's the last part of the tutorial. So now I'll go back here, and this is not part of the training instances that you have. This is something that I've prepared beforehand. We call it visual instance authoring. If you come here, this is a canvas that is loading the ontology that we just created. So the company ontology. Here so it's reading that ontology and creating a canvas that you can create data as you wish and saving it into the triple store as well. So everything that we create here are also, everything is RDF, everything ends up on the database. So I can create a department. So I can click on create department. I have here a label. Let's go marketing. So I have my instance here, and I can create an employee. Here, I can create some kind of employee, and then I can drag and drop here, and this will all come in from the ontology. So the has employee attribute comes from the ontology that we had. I didn't have the label here set up. It's only loading. So the visual instance is based on the models that you load, and they are specific to a certain model. So here I'm only loading the company model. So I'm not loading the FOF. Even though it links to FOF, I need to say that I need to load the descriptions for each class. That's why there's no label here, just to give you a bit of an explanation. But I can create here and save it, and this would end up in the database as a triple as well. And you can create it as, as much as you want. So all the definitions are used here for visual instance authoring. All right, any other questions? So this was the hands-on part. I will show you just very quickly a bit of the slides on what's happening here. Maybe before I go there, this is part of the slides as well. I just want to show you a bit of what we created. So I see that I wasn't maybe clear enough before on what's happening under the hood, right? But everything that we have here is going to a repository, and it's stored as RDF. And everything that we have here on these templates is also being queried with Sparkle. So everything here is RDF and Sparkle. So if we go to the ontology editor and you see these three buttons here, you can go and click on RDF Turtle Editor. So if you see here, this is all the RDF that was created by creating the ontology with Metafactory. So we have the IRI of the company. It's an ontology. It has a title. It has some description that we created, and it has all the property shapes and all the class definitions. So classes are our classes. Data type attributes are data type properties. Relations are object properties. And every time that we create a relation between two classes, this is a property shape. And every time that we subsume another class, this is an RDFS subclass of property. So you can come here, and this you can also write it your own RDF and create your own things here, just so you're aware and you can save it. But it's all available here. And even the vocabulary restriction is also SHACL. So this is how we define it using SHACL, meaning if you validate your data using this ontology, it will also pick it up whether that's part of the vocabulary that you defined or not, right? So you can get SHACL reports and data quality reports all based on the ontology that you created.
Quick question from the chat. So our documentation states that one can write RDF star queries in the backend, but is there UI support for that as well?
Yeah, so I don't remember completely if all the components do it, but as far as I know, you can write RDF star as well. As long as the database supports it, you can write Sparkle queries with RDF star. with meaning Sparkle Star as the current name, and tables and so on, they do work. In the documentation, I think there's an example with a table where it has like a score or something in the documentation. I can look it up the link later. All right, so we have about 10 minutes left. I will share the slides again.
I have one quick question. Did you happen to have a REST interface configured on your demo?
No, not configured on the demo. Yeah, but I can show it to you after. Yeah, no problem. Right. So we were at the demo, the hands-on part. So this is a quick overview on what we did. So we had some requirements. We had projects, members, organizations. We saw the ontology that was available in the system. We saw the vocabularies as well. And then we also saw some instance data. So we saw a bit of the UI, how you can build UIs as well. After we saw that, this is the ontology that we saw that was preloaded into the system. We saw the vocabularies as well that are available. We saw a bit of the DCAT descriptions as well. And then we went on to, sorry. Okay, this is the part that I wanted to show. So what's happening under the hood, right? So everything that was pre-built there is OWL. So the definition of classes are in OWL. The definition of an ontology is in OWL. And all the attributes and relations are also OWL, object properties and so on. You can also have hierarchies then for classes using subclass, and you can have hierarchies for properties as well using subproperty. All the relations between classes and the attributes are shackle, so they're property shapes, as I just showed you before. And all the vocabularies that we created, they are based on SCOS. So vocabularies are concept schemes. All the concepts are of type concept. You have pref labels, synonyms, all the properties coming from SCOS, meaning everything that we've done up until now follow W3C standards. They're all open vocabularies. They're all open on, all the languages that we have used up until now, everything is open, nothing is vendor-based, right? So all of this data that we created, all the ontologies and so on, they're all based on open standards, meaning, no vendor specific, everything RDF and everything following open standards. Then on the second part, we created a solution from scratch. So we created a new ontology. We created some relations between them. We also saw that we can reuse other ontologies, and we support this, and we actually think that this helps a lot with the modeling of ontologies. We also created a new vocabulary. We added some terms, some synonyms, and so on. And then we linked it back into the ontology. We did some data authoring, and then finally we created a UI to do some exploration, to do some search onto the data that we just created. And then as a final step, we showed you a bit on what you can do with the visual instance authoring. Right, so it follows the ontology that we just created. So we can create new instances, create relations, and everything is based on the ontology, on the model that was just created. So this is it. This is the end. So you can try it yourself with the instances that you got here. They will be available for the whole week. If you have any questions or you want to try something, we have a booth as well here on this floor. And if you're online, you can register for a free 4-week trial. That's it. Thanks so much.
Synonym doesn't seem to be synonym. Synonym of programmer.
Right.
When I tried to select it,
Yeah. So I'm not sure how we set up the full text search, but it would basically depend on. So we're using GraphDB, so we have Lucene connectors to do full text search. So it actually depends on how the Lucene connector was configured, and I don't remember it. So if it's there to look on both properties, then it would work.
So currently I'm editing, yeah, I wanted to see.
You're working in the IT side of
Yes, I am. So yeah, we're. I don't know. I see. So IX is all the shared services. So IT exists everywhere. But then there's one part of IT which has the shared services. That's where we have applications and things that all the IT teams across Scania can use. So both within Scania IT, but also outside of. So that's why we're working with RT, because basically we have a.
So that's Victor.
Yeah, that's Victor and his team, and we are sort of responsible for introducing new things to Scania. And yeah, this is one of the things that I have in my responsibility, sort of the knowledge graph semantic.
How's it set up? Manage the techniques.